Hello and welcome to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Now today's engine is from a manufacturer that I love very much, and it would be an Enya engine. In fact, I actually have two of them on the table because I want to talk a little bit about both of these engines, but only one will be receiving bearings. Now the engine that's going to be receiving bearings is an Enya SS25BB engine. And the best I can come up with is both of these engines, the SS25BB and the SS25, which is the other engine, came out in about 1986. So these are very, very excellent quality engines, as all engines from Enya are. So let's go straight to the table and let's check these engines out, and then we'll do a bearing removal and replacement on the SS25BB. Okay, so here on the table are the two engines I just mentioned. This is the Enya SS25BB engine. This is the one I'm actually going to be replacing, doing a bearing replacement on. Now this is an engine that was just given to me by a really awesome friend of mine. And it's a used engine. I had it on the stand a little while ago, or a couple days ago, and it ran fantastic. It was beautiful. And these Enya engines are just incredibly good runners. This one looks to be in really, really good shape. This is its little twin. This is the Enya SS25 non-ball bearing engine. Now, the best I can come up with is that these two engines came out in production into the marketplace at about the same time. And not unlike OS, who has an OS engines timeline that shows the year that each of their engines has been released, I've never seen that type of knowledge or timeline given out by any other manufacturer at all. So you can only go by what you have in review articles and if you get the paperwork that comes with the engine. So the thing is, these engines look very, very similar. And this RC, or the BB engine, has a much larger looking carb. Now this could very well be the original variant, and this one could be a later one. And the things that I thought were also interesting was that this one, the two exhausts are different. So the non-bearing engine has this exhaust, and the bearing engine has this exhaust. And this is validated in one of the review articles. But the only thing you can kind of go by is in time, if they were released at the same time. And in this case, I'm going by this operating instruction. So it's showing three engines here of the 25 and 30 displacement. It's showing the SS25, the SS25BB, and then of course the SS30 helicopter engine. So I'm thinking that all three of these were put out at the same time, and the review article basically says 1986. The other thing that's interesting about these engines is two-piece crankcase without a removable rear cover. So obviously the head comes off, front end comes off, but there are no screws or anything to remove on this rear cover. So this is a very unique design. It's very simple, but yet it's incredibly durable. These are very powerful engines. So I'm going to put these things away, and I'll go ahead and start disassembling this engine and come back when we've got just the front housing to remove bearings on. One other note, you can tell the difference between these obviously by looking at the front, but the BB engine actually has BB embossed or cast into the carb mount, which I thought was kind of an interesting thing. Why wouldn't they put it here on the casing? But they didn't. They put it on that carb mount like that. So anyway, let me go ahead and disassemble this engine, and we'll get to replacing some bearings. Okay, so I got this engine disassembled, and I kind of got blindsided by something that was rather interesting. And that is, obviously I said that this was a two-piece crankcase and everything is all well and good, and you can see here, you can get some light in there to see that little connecting rod. I didn't take the head off. I don't know if I'm going to, because this engine is actually rather clean looking. When I first got it, it was really gummed up and the bearings felt pretty rough, but they don't really feel so bad now. But we're going to go ahead and change them. But anyway, so I was taking this apart, and Enya has always had, at least a lot of their engines just have double flats on the drive hub that you just kind of pull off. Well, this one comes with a little bitty woodruff key. It's got a key slot in there. And when I say little bitty woodruff key, I mean a little bitty woodruff key. So this is definitely one of those things you don't want to accidentally sneeze and lose that thing, because then you're really kind of out of luck, because finding woodruff keys that tiny, probably not the easiest of things. So I'm going to put these things aside. I've got my tools out here that I'll talk about, and then we'll get into this bearing removal. Okay, so here I've got my little crank case with its bearings installed, crankshaft in there, and all the tools I'm going to need. Now I have this small miniature bearing puller from the Boca's miniature bearing puller toolkit out, just because of the fact that it seems like the last few types of engines like this with the front detachable housing I've had, the rear bearing has not come off on the crankshaft, and it's been left in there, which is something I'd like to avoid if at all. I'd like that to happen, but it doesn't always work out that way. So I forgot I didn't get my vise set up to actually do this removal. With larger engines I can just kind of hold it, but I don't think I want to do that with this little one. So I need to get this set up for the right size before I heat this thing up. Okay, so that's good. Let me find my glove. Let's heat this engine up. See how easily these things want to come apart. Like I said, I just ran this engine about a week or so ago, so there should be some oil still in this area. Okay, that's looking like it's pretty warm there. I'm just going to use this little tapper here. Okay, so the crankshaft is coming out by itself, which is kind of what I didn't want to have happen, but it did, and this is rather warm. A little bit too warm for me to want to just put my hand on there. So this should pop right out. And there's that front bearing. Wow, that thing looks brand new. Does look very new. So now what I'm going to do here is, hopefully that'll cool enough so I can actually use this. Put this in here and find, it's got a really nice gap in there. So all I got to do is just start preloading or pre-opening this to about the right size to get in that little gap. And now I just need to tighten this up. What I want to do is look inside here just to make sure I'm still in that bearing gap there. Yes, I am. Alright, so now it might be a little hard to see this, because now I am probably going to have to hold this thing up, heat it and hold it and tap it like this. I don't know if it's still warm enough to have that bearing come out like this now or not. Might actually have to heat this up a bit more before it's going to be willing to just come out like that. Let's see if I've got a larger, just a different size. Because basically I'm tapping on the front of these jaws, which is really not how this thing is designed to be used. It's designed to just pull out, but in this application I don't have a choice but to tap it out. So I'm going to have to heat this up a little bit more. And I don't think you're going to be able to see it because I'm going to be holding like this. But we'll see what happens here. Let's see if it's warm enough to get this out. And there you go. That is really hot. I got that really warm. This isn't warm, so I can take my glove off. So now we just simply unscrew the needle chuck and pull that bearing off. And there you have it. This thing is really hot, so I don't want to keep touching that. It doesn't look, it looks like I can probably just do a little quick clean on that. And I'm going to go down and clean up this crankshaft on the bench grinder with a brass bristle brush. Get this all cleaned up, and then we'll be ready to install a new set of bearings. Okay, so I've got everything ready to reassemble and install some new bearings in here, and I have something else also. Recall from the very first segment, or an earlier segment, where I mentioned that this particular SS25BB's crankshaft was a little bit different, and it incorporated a Woodruff key in the crankshaft, and I mentioned that it seemed to me most Enya engines have a double flat on the drive hub as opposed to incorporating a Woodruff key, and I don't really know what the advantage is of that, but I happen to have an Enya 80 4-cycle crankshaft here because I'm working on one for a customer, and this does show exactly what I'm talking about, which is got the 2 flats on the drive hub and of course the 2 flats on the crankshaft. That's kind of more what I'm used to seeing out of Enya. If I could get these things lined up again here and go on there. It's a really good design. It doesn't tend to waller out, but I don't understand why they put a Woodruff key in this one. So I've got everything I need here to do the bearing installation. I've got the original bearings. I'm going to leave those out for a second because I want to talk about the front bearing. I've got a little jar here that's still got probably enough of this Boca bearings lightning lube road power. This is, man, it looks like it's dripping. I don't want that dripping out of there. This is the installation, bearing installation and reassembly lube that I use for all of my engines just because it's really, really awesome stuff. And I've got everything else set up here to do this bearing installation. So the thing I thought that was interesting was this has must have a very low time engine here because this front bearing, it looks really perfect. Rear bearing feels good also. But the thing with the front bearing that I thought was interesting is this is very similar to a Boca bearing. In fact, I'm almost wondering if somebody, a prior owner of this engine, actually installed Boca bearings in it, because instead of having the clip or the steel shield on here that's just kind of pressed in place, this one's got the little clip, the little C-clip that I oftentimes have difficulty getting out. So it's got a clip retainer, which, you know, I've never seen that on any bearings other than Boca's. So it makes me wonder if this is actually a set of Boca bearings that a previous owner put in this engine. I don't know. But with all that said, let's talk about the bearings I'm going to install in here, and then I'll lube these things up and we'll get them installed. So the bearing kit I've got here is an ENK-025 HP. Now the HP stands for high performance or high speed is what it says on there. I didn't see any kind of description on this particular kit that tells me what the high speed version really means, other than it looks like it's fully shielded, and I'm going to have to take the shields off of that, of course. So let me get these out. We'll get these prepped and ready to go. So yes, so this is an interesting thing too, because this is the R4 bearing that came in this kit, and it has this traditional, what I would say a traditional shield that you can kind of dive in there and you pull it out, and you'll see me do that on one of the sides here. Typically I see the clip from Boca's kits in sizes like this and not that tight, so that's kind of an interesting thing there. So here's the high speed bearing. It feels really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to punch out, take one of these shields out of here. See, on these, the ones that I'm saying are kind of just like pressed in there. You just kind of pop in there and pull that thing out. You deform it and then it just comes right out. And I'm doing that only on one side for the front. Same thing with this. Now this had open shields on this, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Just pop that out there. And see, now this is something I've never seen before on a bearing this size. I thought it was one of those ones where you just go in there and you just dive in there and pop it out, but it actually had a clip. Here's that clip. So I just kind of forced it out the way I thought it would come out, but it actually has one of those clips in there. So that's interesting. I don't know that I've ever seen that on this size bearing before. But anyway, so let's do some lubrication here of these parts. Get these bearings installed in this engine, have this engine ready to go again. Now I got this little front end of this crankcase all cleaned up. Didn't take much. A little bit of time in the ultrasonic. It's very lightweight. So as usual, I always will put my rear bearing on first, and that's tight. It's gonna wanna, it'll seat on there once I tap it in place, and then I'll lubricate the outside of that, lubricate the inside of this. Find my glove, which is conveniently right behind my back. We'll heat this little front end up here just slightly and get some bearings installed. I don't want it to blow away. It's pretty lightweight. Okay, so let's make sure that thing is not exactly cool. That bearing's installed. Now let's see if we can get this one in here. Yeah, that needs another tapper. Looks like that's right. So there you go. It is a little warm, but not too warm to hold for a quick demo here. And there you go. Now this Enya SS25BB is ready to be reinstalled or reassembled.